Hello and welcome to ENCORE. This is what's being celebrated all this month in Paris. The Paris Photo Fair is taking place at the Grand Palais all week, while November is Photography Month here in Paris, and that means plenty for photo lovers to sink their teeth into right now in the French capital. So we here at ENCORE have decided to devote this show entirely to photography with one of its masters. I'm joined by Henri Daumont. Now, he has journeyed all over the world. He's documented some of its most important historical events, personalities and cultural changes. 4 decades as a feature photographer for Life magazine has given him access, of course, to the rich, the powerful, the artistic and the glamorous, but always the newsworthy. Henri Daumont, thank you very much indeed for being our guest today. First of all, you've arrived in Paris a week ago. You're, of course, New York-based. The exhibition, which is at the Palais d'Iéna, runs until the 4th of December. It must be very odd, first of all, to find yourself in a room with your work all around you, assembled by someone else in a particular perspective.
Well, certainly. It's probably the first time I see so many photographs together, because each individual story was done for this particular story and nothing else. And my pictures have always been done for a double page, a full page, or a cover in a magazine or a newspaper.
With something ephemeral in the end about them, whereas now you see them on the wall and you realize, of course, their timelessness.
It's very interesting and kind of shocking to see everything at once. I mean, everything. The exhibition is maybe less than 0.5% of all the negatives that I have. I have about possibly 800,000 to 1 million negatives and transparencies with all these stories that were done in the past half-century.
And a few of them, of course, on show. Here's a taste of what you'll see at the Palais d'Iéna if you have a chance to go. Henri Daumont, it is a look back over half a century of work, half a century of tremendous changes, in particular within American society.
The United States doesn't stop from moving. There's always new things, and civilization has changed. I felt it at the turn of the century. We saw tremendous changes again and again. It keeps changing, and it's very hard to keep up with new thoughts and new behavior and what the United States is doing.
And to do it in pictures. And of course, one of the big things that you covered, that you lived through, was the civil rights movements. How was it as a photographer covering that particular story, which was a huge change in American society?
Yes, well, this took place soon after President Kennedy was assassinated and President Johnson took over, and he went into the direction of creating, he went through Congress, and he was able to pass new laws which allowed the country to change racially.
Now, you've also covered, of course, abroad a number of events.
Yes.
Quite famously, you went in Vietnam. Rather than concentrate entirely on the war, you also covered a Buddhist crisis in Saigon. Sometimes it's important to look at what the rest of the world is not looking at itself.
Yes, well, when I went to Vietnam, it was to understand why the monks were burning themselves. And Life had sent maybe 7, 8, or 10 photographers trying to penetrate the Buddhists, and they said, well, we'll try the Frenchie, see if he can do it better. And I met the top monk there, and Thich Tri Quang. And he took me to all the places that were interesting to see, which explained that the war was unwinnable in Vietnam. He predicted everything that would happen in the future. So this is the beauty of being a photojournalist, is that you meet all kinds of people in different worlds, and it's my university. I've learned all about these people. It's so fulfilling to talk to all these people with bright ideas, how they're changing the world. And these are the movers and shakers.
And sometimes you're able to get to the truth.
That's once in a while, yes.
Now, another big exhibition beyond Henri Daumont here in Paris at the moment is also the highlight of Paris's month-long celebration of photography, and it is the Paris Photo Fair at the Grand Palais, an exhibition that is in its 18th year, and that's being held this week with even more galleries, more countries, more editors, and many, many more photographies than ever before. We went to meet the exhibition's curator, Julien Friedman, who showed us one of the works that you may recognize, as it's received a lot of attention recently after going viral over the last couple of weeks. Now, it's the first time these photographs have been displayed in a series, and it's expected that they'll sell for a record price.
We have more than 170 exhibitors, more than 15,000 prints and thousands of artists being presented. We are just in front of the work of Nicholas Nixon, the Brown Sisters series presented at Frankel Gallery, which I think is an incredible opportunity, and we are so lucky that this is being presented for the first time ever. 40 years of this encounter between the photographer and the four Brown sisters.
Now, just one of the works Henri Daumont is expected to go to record price. Of course, all these works at Paris Photo will be on sale as well. One of the things that has changed over the course of your career is the value of individual photographs themselves.
It's amazing. I mean, I never was too keen on exposing my photographs because everything I shot were made, as I said before, for a double page or a page in a magazine. And I always thought this was the best way of communicating. But I'm very pleased that at the show, I am seeing direct reaction of people reacting to my photos, which is interesting. It's the first time that I see live people reacting to photographs on the wall.
What is the ways in which, through your career, photojournalism itself, because that is what you've done, you've covered the world's events, how has that changed over the course of your time?
Oh, it has changed tremendously. The magazine world started to go downhill in the, I would say, late 60s, early 70s, where the press was consolidating, and it was very expensive to publish a magazine such as Life, which had a circulation of 8.5 million copies. Tremendous amount of paper is used. Paper became expensive. Mailing those magazines for subscribers became expensive. And television was encroaching the magazine world. So things were changing in the mid-70s, where there came a time where most photojournalists like me did not have a stage in which to perform anymore.
And yet, when you look around you at what's being produced today, do you feel that there is still work of quality being done? Is the truth still being told?
Well, it is very difficult with everybody taking pictures. Many agencies are using photographs from amateurs who take pictures on their iPhone. So it has changed. I think that I read recently that 30% of young people get their information through Facebook. So I am not sure that Facebook, as a research staff, as important as the New York Times or the Washington Post, etc.
No, indeed.
So I don't know that they are getting the real truth and in depth.
Now, going back to Paris Photo Month, there are several themes being celebrated this year, including the Mediterranean, the art of the intimate and amateur photography. Well, there is another exhibition here in Paris that falls very neatly within the Mediterranean part of that, and that is Memoria, a collection of the works of Roberto Battistini at the Museum of the History of Immigration. It runs until the 30th of November. The idea is to look at soldiers who came from the southern shores of the Mediterranean in order to fight on behalf of Allied forces in the Second World War, most of them forgotten, all of them relatively anonymous. What do you think about these kind of photographs of anonymous soldiers? You've spent a lot of your time taking photographs of very well-known people. Is there a big difference in your approach?
Yes. I think that I always try to personalize the stories that I produced by getting to know the subject, having long discussions to understand what they were like.
Which is all the more important when someone almost is iconic in their image, I suppose.
Well, they're not iconic when I get them. Let's say when I did a story on Marshall McLuhan in Toronto, he was a professor at the University of Toronto in Canada, and nobody knew of him. But he had written several books that were well known, such as The Gutenberg Galaxy, The Global Village, and The Medium is the Message. So it was hard to understand what he was telling me. But when I spoke to him in depth, he was really telling me what would be a fact today.
Monsieur Daumont, thank you very much for having been our guest today. It brings us to the end of today's programme. You can, of course, have a look at Henri Daumont's exhibition, an idea of what you can expect on our website, and indeed the rest of what's happening here in Paris this month, also by following us on Twitter and on Facebook. Just before we go, though, I'd like to leave you with a look at a book of photographs that's just been released, a book dedicated to American writers, L'Amérique des écrivains, subtitled Road Trip. It's a collection of photographs, but also of interviews with the leading writers in the USA. And what's probably most remarkable about it is that it is the work of an entire family, a photographer and a writer who packed their 4 kids in a camper van and went in search of the United States and of its writers. There's more coming up on France 24 just after this.